Good morning, everyone. Thank you for making it bright and early, especially a day before Holi, and really grateful for all of you making it on time. I wouldn't take long. I'll just take the next 5-10 minutes to set the stage for what is an important conversation through the day. So welcome to the E-Shramik event. Like Madhuri said, we'll share some of the learnings we have had in working in states on kind of labor projects. And derived from that work from 6 to 8 states, we'd be sharing some knowledge products. But before that, for those who are not familiar, I'm Tarun, founder CEO of Indus Action. If I had to kind of capture my life experience in one slide, like this is what I could come up with. So my first internship was at Baba Atomic Research Center. So as a young chemical engineer, I had the opportunity to work on a very small project. My role was very small, but the vision was so grand. It was about finding a way to establish thorium-based nuclear reactors in India, because India has its own thorium deposits, and that's not been done before. It was a 50-year kind of master plan, and as a young 20-year-old chemical engineer, it kind of filled my eyes with a lot of dreams and possibilities that you could apply science and engineering for public good. You can make India energy secure in our lifetime. So I remember every day used to fill me with a lot of excitement and hope to see young research officers who were just out of kind of their doctorate, striving with minimum resources, being radically frugal, and in pursuit of this really large dream. So it made me think about the legacy of that institution, from Homi Bhabha to, of course, a lot of other directors, and of course the founding vision of the then kind of establishment to invest in science and technology and to build such an institution. And then, of course, Rocket Boys is a Sony Live show which made this memorable, which connects it to then APJ Abdul Kalam, and now where we are in terms of, so that was kind of my first experience, which gave me the belief that, one, of course, great individuals, build great institutions, but institutions can, endure beyond kind of individuals as well. And that's kind of really what sustains itself. So, it wasn't kind of fast paced for my anxiety, so I took up HUL job in fast moving consumer goods to actually apply science and engineering to deliver ice cream, jams, and ketchups. How do you deliver that product in the shortest time possible to a Shakti Amma, let's say in Kachon, Silvassa, or Kapaleshwarapuram in Andhra Pradesh? Like, how does that young woman or mother can really unlock her enterprising skills? So it was a great lesson in how do you cross the T's and dot the I's, and how do you do on time, infill with quality. As soon as the consumer has picked up something off the shelf, the feedback loop will go all the way to a factory shop floor. So it was a great learning in how to see the entire value chain and how to obviously build research, build products, and then really take them to the market in the shortest time span possible. So if you've had gelato or Magnum, I've had a small role in bringing that to India, so many years ago. But I thought ice creams, jams, and ketchups, I can't make for the rest of my life. So that what got me into a classroom with Teach for India, was part of the founding cohort. And really that was the first social mission. I'd count maybe BARC as a public mission as well, but it was an internship. Teach for India was my first experience of actually fully immersing in the last mile. HUL put you on the shop floor. I did the shop floor work for 15 months and grew through the ranks, but it was not like Teach for India, where a full 2 years I was the teacher in a low-income classroom in Pune, and I taught grade 3 and 4-year-olds, and it was really, and when we started Teach for India, it was the third kind of Teach for after Teach for America and Teach First, and now Teach for All is a movement of about 64 Teach Fors, which basically motivates young people to be in under-resourced classrooms. So it was also a great lesson on how do you do people development and that kind of scale, like how can networks really mobilize leadership and then be embedded in public systems. So if I look back, the journey before Indus Action has been exposure to great institutions and individuals who've dedicated their life to build public goods, to deliver great products in the last mile, and also develop people very intentionally, and all at population scale. So those were kind of really where I cut my teeth and like imbibe some of those lessons, which got me to Indus Action after my grad school, where I had the good fortune to overlap with Gulzar. So I was on the same program and doing the MPID at Kennedy School, and my graduate thesis was on the Right to Education Act, which just so happened that it was passed when I was a teacher, and I firsthand could see the great intent of the policy, having its limit in translating into practice. Whether it was the comprehensive curricular evaluation or just the infrastructure norms as well. You can see the classroom, like it was a tin roof. We didn't have a boundary wall. We had a dilapidated toilet. It didn't meet any of the infrastructure norms. But miraculously, like 95% attendance on teachers' side. Kids would attend 90% of the time. Our 10th results would kind of, compare with, are significantly better than the neighborhood public school. So that made me question, like, what's kind of, happening here. Clearly, the school will be shut down if we have to kind of, meet the policy rules. And that made me think about, because I taught in grade 3 and 4 and realized that kids were already 2.5 years behind. So it made me go on this kind of inquiry on what is the earliest intervention that we really need to do at a systems level to enhance human capital. And so I studied one particular clause within the RT Act, which was the most contested clause and still is. It is the 25% in kind of private unaided schools. It gives the opportunity for almost 2.5 million students every year to study in private unaided classrooms. And really the fundamental question is, in modern India, can we have Arjuna and Eklavya study in the same classroom? So can all the historical kind of disadvantages and barriers, can they be bridged as early as an entry class classroom, kindergarten or grade 1? Can Sanya and Uma, their ambitions are to be a doctor. One is a child of say, MNC head, and one is a child of, say, a driver or a blue collar worker. Can they, having the same ambitions, kind of be in the same classroom and achieve it? So the first decade was really kind of pursuing that question through the Right to Education Act, and we enabled access to these scholarships across multiple states. Before COVID, we were supporting about 19 states administer this policy, and roughly about 1 million of these transformative entitlements is what additionally we were able to enable. And doing that, we came to naturally, COVID happened, it placed a shock, multiple shocks actually, on kind of children's families. And because we closely followed children, we realized that unless we protected life and livelihood, we would not be able to secure learning outcomes for the students who were part of our longitudinal group. And that made us think really, critically about what do we need to do to provide social protection to the family so that the child actually has a fair shot for 20 years of their life to, accumulate human capital. So yeah, the question we asked was, what do we, do to build aspiration for the India that is kind of actually building, the Bharat that is building India? Can, instead of, walking by foot, can they aspire to fly the skies as well? So what you see on the right is a good visual of polycrisis. This is kind of the lived experience, daily day, of an informal worker whom we'll focus on for, and 91% of India is experiencing these daily shocks in the informal economy, and it's a vicious cycle. It's very difficult to elevate yourself out of this toxic stress and then really focus on building human capital. And so the next decade, we're really trying to focus on broadly the 44 crore informal workers, but our work is to build the labor public systems so that at least a good sample share of those workers, informal workers, unorganized workers, about 50 million. So we're trying to do almost a 50x in our second decade, receive these entitlements that are already kind of prescribed by law, and the state systems do exist to administer them. I'll quickly, I know we have some of the finest minds scheduled to talk about this to the rest of the day, but I thought I'll take one slide to just set the context of where we are on the kind of labor story as a country. Very quickly, a lot of you might have already read a lot in the daily papers about it, but if you really think about strength, we've heard about demographic dividend. To be precise here, like we have just 30 more years 2055 is kind of the deadline where we will then have the dependent population, what is called the replacement ratio, outweigh the pace of the growth of the working population, which subsidizes kind of children and kind of senior citizens. And so we'll no longer have the demographic dividend. The second, but compared to the strength, the weakness is that only 9% is truly formal, in terms of salaried employees with job contracts, versus the benchmarks you see of, BRIC and other countries, which kind of underlying shows kind of the precarious employment, almost 91% of the labor force encounters. The big opportunity in the last 5 years has been kind of digital public infrastructure and the DBT story. It's actually been a 20-year story in the making, but has really taken off and shown our ability to kind of target the most vulnerable. About 20 trillion rupees of DBTs that have been enabled since 2019. A building block that can really provide, a layer of preventive and protective entitlements to the registered, E-Shram workers, which are about 45 crore. And finally, the big threat, once again, India has only 2.3% share of the workforce with formal skills training, benchmarked with, China to South Korea. South Korea is at 96%, and of course, all of the other developed countries significantly ahead. So this leaves not just the formal, but also the informal workers at significant risk of being left out, as we have productivity gains with, AI coming away. So like Madhuri said, I'll stop here. We actually have, some of the finest minds in our country who've thought deeply about the economy as a whole, the country as a whole, and would be able to kind of, share light on what are pathways to prosperity. So we'll start, of course, next with, Gulzar here, who'll share his notes on what are the pathways to prosperity for the informal workers and the economy as a whole. And then, we'll share kind of our knowledge over the last 5 years, particularly on labor, and we'll close it out with a panel with a mix of experts and practitioners who've been thinking about labor economics very deeply, as their vocation. Thank you for making it, and I'll hand over to Madhuri.